think that our founding fathers had a anarcho-capitalist structure defined in our Constitution. But the founding fathers, our Constitution, was based on a anarcho-capitalist idea. I mean, the idea of God is he's an anarcho-capitalist as well.
Hey, the original anomaly. In light of those quotes and some of the other things you said in your video, do you think it's possible, maybe, that you're just projecting these ideas onto these figures? I mean, just the idea that so many of these people are anarcho-capitalist. Just suggesting, perhaps you're projecting a little.
Libertarian is based off the Constitution.
Here, the term libertarian means the opposite of what it always meant in history. Libertarian, throughout modern European history, meant socialist anarchist. It meant the socialist movement, the workers' movement and the socialist movement, sort of broke into two branches, roughly. One statist, one anti-statist. The statist branch led to Bolshevism and Lenin and Trotsky and so on. The anti-statist branch, which included Marxists, left Marxists, Hanekoek, Rosa Luxemburg, others, kind of merged more or less into an amalgam with a big strain of anarchism into what was called libertarian socialism. So libertarian in Europe always meant socialist. Here it means ultra, Ayn Rand or ultra Cato Institute or something like that. But that's a special U.S. usage having to do with a lot of things quite special about the way the United States developed, and this is part of it. There it meant, and always meant to me, socialist, anti-state, the anti-state branch of socialism, which meant a highly organized society, completely organized, nothing to do with chaos, but based on a democracy all the way through. That means democratic control of communities, of workplaces, of federal structures built on systems of voluntary association spreading internationally. That's traditional anarchism. At least, anybody can have the word if they like, but it's a mainstream, probably the mainstream of traditional anarchism.
I'm pretty amazed at the rate of radicalism that you force upon anarcho-capitalists.
Actually, my essential criticism of anarcho-capitalism is that it is not radical.
Anarchism being against the state is kind of a play on words, because the state that you're talking about is like a ruling party or such, which is not what our states were designed to be unions, like mass unions, so that we can come together and vote on issues that we all agree upon.
It's worth remembering the principles on which the country was founded. Now, the United States is an unusual country. Most countries kind of grew out of existing institutions. But the United States was different. It was created. It's kind of like a blank slate. It's the one country that was almost constructed from almost nothing. And we know how it was constructed, and it's quite interesting. You go back to the Constitutional Convention, where the dominant voice was James Madison, the main framer of the Constitution. And this does not come out very clearly in the stuff that you read in college, like the Federalist Papers, which was presented for the public, so it's kind of watered down. But if you go back to the Constitutional Convention debates, they're very clear. Madison makes clear that the prime responsibility of government and the framework of the new government that's being established, the prime responsibility of government, he says, is to protect the minority of the opulent against the majority. That's the prime responsibility. Then there's secondary things. But you've got to protect the minority, the opulent, against the majority. Madison warned of what he called the danger of the leveling spirit among the, I'm quoting now, among the growing numbers of people who labor under all the hardships of life and secretly sigh for a more equal distribution of its blessings. Now that's a big danger, and if you let that danger be realized in the new system, it's going to threaten the minority of the opulent, and they have to be protected. So therefore democracy is unacceptable. That was the primary principle on which the Constitution was designed and on which the system was designed, and very explicit. Democracy is unacceptable because of this leveling spirit among the people who labor under all the hardships of life and sigh for a more equal distribution of its blessings. And if you give them a chance to do anything about it, you're going to threaten the minority, the opulent. And he used England as that was the obvious example. That was the model for everyone. He said in England, if they allowed democracy, then people would, the mass of the population would vote for what we now call agrarian reform. That is, they would call for breaking up the big landed estates, and it would threaten the minority, the opulent, and obviously that's an intolerable idea, as intolerable as today in Guatemala or something like that. So therefore, we got to make sure that there's no democratic system. And Madison totally carried the day. The only dissenting voice in the Constitutional Convention was James Wilson, and he was smashed. Jefferson wasn't part of this, remember. He was a real Democrat, so he was out of the whole planning. And that's the way the system was designed. It was very carefully designed to satisfy the Madisonian principle that wealth must rule, because, as he put it, the wealthy are a better class of men, and therefore they must rule, and besides, they own the country anyhow, so therefore they have a responsibility and a right, and the minority, the opulent, must be protected. All of this is clear, explicit, and interestingly, it doesn't change.
The state is not the mediator and creator of policy as such. It is the purveyor of force and control. As Max Weber, the German sociologist, bourgeois theorist, anti-Marxist, said, the state has a monopoly of the legitimate or legal uses of force and violence. It is the purveyor. It is the protector of the status quo of law and order. The difference between government and state is the difference between the city council and the police. You get it? It's the difference between the Congress and the CIA. It's a theoretical distinction about empirically overlapping actuality.
Namely, however, it has been taken back mostly under the guise of social programs, such as Social Security and taxing the rich to give to the poor. It's a very popular message because a lot of people were poor back then. But I think there's other ways to come about it.
There has been, as you know, in modern times, a massive growth of government. Government has grown immensely, and there are two theories to explain that. One is the conservative view, which is that government grows because bureaucrats are given to self-aggrandizement, and professional elites just like to create services and agencies to advance their careers. That's one view, and also because of those power-wielding, selfish, greed-driven welfare mothers who cause so much growth in government and spending. There's another theory which has a closer relationship to reality, and the second theory is the political economic theory. That is, that government grows because the population grows and the economy grows, and that government growth came mostly at the behest of those very dominant conservative interests that are always bemoaning the growth of government. As the economy grew from a colonial, self-sustained, local, self-employed economy to a complex, mass-market, corporate capitalist economy, you had what? You had the need for new modes of transportation and whole new technologies developed by government. You had export supports and market protections that came from the government. You had price supports and investment subsidies that came from the government. Now the cobbler, the smith, the housewife, the seamstress, they didn't demand these services and growth, and they weren't for their benefit. They were there for the people who owned and controlled the land, the labor, and the resources.
No one can control your thoughts.
No, they cannot control your thoughts, but they can and often do control what we think about, the information we receive about the world, and how to interpret that information is often controlled by them.